Chapter 3, Part 2. The Factors of Recidivism. Unemployment. On average, around 60% of formerly incarcerated people are jobless as of 2023. Of more than 50,000 people released from federal prison in 2021, a staggering 41% found no employment at all over 4 years post-release. Harsh parole conditions, a lack of social welfare programs, and a tough job market are forcing formerly incarcerated people, already a low-income majority-minority demographic, into the least desirable jobs. This chart indicates that formerly incarcerated individuals face high rates of unemployment after release, with little improvement over time. Within 6 months of release in 2010, 62% of individuals were unemployed. And after 4 years, the rate remained high at 65%, significantly above the U.S. peak unemployment rate in 2020, which was 15%. This data highlights that persistent employment challenges faced by those who have been in the federal prison system. The overall employment rate for 4 years after the study population was released hovered between 34.9% and 37.9%. In other words, about 2/3 of the population were jobless at any given time. People who did find jobs struggled too. Formerly incarcerated people in the sample had an average of 3 to 4 jobs throughout the 4-year study, suggesting that they were landing jobs that didn't offer security or upward mobility. For the lucky few who do find employment after release, their earnings are lower than the general population. The average median wage in the U.S. was about $58,140 annually. According to a 2023 report by the National Institute of Justice, the median annual earnings of parolees in the United States were approximately $24,000 annually, less than half of what the average person makes in the U.S. Housing. Housing is a key predictor of successful community reentry. Returning citizens for whom safe and affordable housing is inaccessible often experience a downward spiral immediately following release from incarceration that increases the risk of recidivism. Without housing, accessing much-needed social services and health services is extremely challenging. Safe and affordable housing serves as a protective factor. By removing the search for housing as a primary need, therefore facilitating access to other needed services. If housing is a protective factor that reduces recidivism, then housing is an aspect of public safety. Nearly 1 in 3 adults in the United States has a criminal arrest record. People with criminal records face landlords who refuse to rent to them even when they are financially qualified. Employers who will not hire them, even when they have the necessary skills, and service providers who deny them access to needed services even when they are eligible to receive them. The following chart shows the homeless rates among formerly incarcerated people. The chart would suggest the rate of homelessness for formerly incarcerated people is 203 per 10,000 people. Another 367 per 10,000 were marginally housed in hotels, motels, or rooming houses. The chart would also suggest that African Americans and Hispanics are overrepresented at 191 per 10,000 for African Americans and 148 per 10,000 for Hispanics. Mental health. Post-incarceration syndrome is a psychiatric disorder that affects people who have been incarcerated and then released back into society. It's characterized as a range of psychological, emotional, and social difficulties that can arise as a result of being imprisoned. Some symptoms of PICS include fear of failure, fear being sent back to prison, or wanting to revert back to prison, as well as cognitive impairment, feeling on edge, and periodic angry outbursts. They also have flashbacks and nightmares, which then in turn causes difficulty sleeping, anxiety and depression, difficulty concentrating, social isolation, distorted negative feelings about themselves, all of this leading to substance abuse as a way to cope. Substance use disorders. Inmates, both current and former, often turn to drugs to self-medicate as a way to temper and escape the symptoms and disorders caused by incarceration. Institutionalized personality traits. This passivity is derived from an individual's ongoing state of learned helplessness as they encounter various deprivations within their incarceration. This suppression of their personal nature and individualized critical thinking rises as a defense against prison authorities and also towards their fellow inmates who, at times, may challenge their safety. Combined with childhood traumas and other mental health issues an inmate may have had prior to incarceration, the likelihood of recidivism almost doubles without support services post-release. Successful reentry has a 98.7% higher success rate when community support programs are in place and community members are part of and participate in the programs. A study conducted by the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2023 concluded that community support can be a make-it-or-break-it factor in reentry by becoming a sponsor to a formerly incarcerated person through mentorship programs, offering paid internships through locally owned businesses or corporate, donating goods or services by volunteering at the facility if possible, or donating financially to the programs. You increase the likelihood of successful reentry by formerly incarcerated by up to 50%. What does it all mean when all factors are combined? The data indicates that federal inmates in Wyoming have a 25% probability of recidivism. This implies that 1 out of every 4 inmates released under supervision will return to prison to address recidivism and effectively reintegrate these individuals into society. It is imperative to provide affordable and attainable housing solutions, reentry programs that include employment, education, life skills and job training services, physical, mental, and spiritual health services, and finally, community support and service programs. Here at Gavin's House, we believe for federal inmates to reintegrate into society and become productive members, it is imperative to establish safeguards through the provision of affordable, safe, clean, and supportive transitional housing, additionally offering employment opportunities, job training, education, medical, mental, and spiritual support services, along with a supportive community, is essential in assisting them to break the cycle of incarceration.